Hello HEMA friends and welcome to this new video. So I am finally back from my instructor training which I had the past week. It was extremely interesting. I will probably talk about something that I learned in this week in the future videos, but today I'm here to answer the questions that you asked me in the previous video. So this will be my first Q&A video. I am in program to do more of them if you enjoy this one. So if you want, just ask me more questions under this video. Remember that I will never be able to answer every single question. For example, in the previous video you asked me a lot of questions. Some of them are really complex to answer, and also some of them asked more than one question. So it's kind of a huge number of questions to answer. That said, let's instantly start from the first one. So I have here my phone, and the first one is okay, what's your opinion on the Titan mask of Leon Paul? Now, it's kind of a hard question to answer because I have mixed feelings about that kind of tool, that kind of mask. So, as you have probably seen, I used the Titan mask for basically 2 to 3 days, if you follow me regularly. And then I changed for the also Leon Paul coaching mask. Now, this happened because I received my Titan mask, and after 3 months, it had some damages. And to me, was kind of unhappy to see, because I have used a regular Chinese mask for 7 years and it never had any kind of damage. So buying some kind of mask which was made for HEMA and seeing the damages after 3 months was kind of, well, not good. But the problem is that other people have a really good opinion of that mask. So what I see is that there is not, let's say, an average level of production for this kind of mask. There are some masks which are really good and are enduring for years without any kind of damage, and other masks like my one end up receiving damages in a short time. So I can say that the Titan mask is not good at all. It's probably a good mask, but only 50% of the time. So the problem is probably about the quality, the average quality of the tool, not the quality itself of the mask. Personally speaking, when I gave back my Titan mask, I asked for a coaching mask because I don't want to try again the luck, and so I received my coaching mask. I find it better, to be honest, in basically any regards. It's easier to see inside the mask because the Titan mask have really a wire which is let's say larger, and so you have a smaller space to watch from. So now after 6 months, I think 5 or 6 months is still okay, it's perfect. I received also hard hits on the head, so I prefer the coaching mask. The Titan mask, no, I don't really like it, to be honest, because of the personal issues that I had with it. But as I said before, considering the other persons that used it and their feedbacks, probably is a good mask. But as I said before, probably 50–60% of the times. That's it. So let's go for the second question. Hello, greetings from Philippines. It is necessary to... Hello, by the way. It's from Ali Dailizan. I hope to spell it right. The previous question about the Titan mask was from Arden. So hi, Arden. So Ali instead asks, is it necessary to learn the techniques through the treatise? If so, can you apply several of the said techniques through the way how you fight and in sparring? Okay, so basically he's asking me if it's is necessary to learn techniques and if I personally can apply them in sparring. or in a fight. Now, I never had a real fight, as probably I would say every single HEMA practitioner, luckily. Sparring and tournaments are approximations of a fight in different ways, so they are not real fights, let's say. In terms of, let's start from the last question. So in terms of sparring and tournaments, I can apply several techniques from the place. Now, to be honest, it's hard to see a technique which is not in the place, in general, historical place in general. So even weird techniques like, for example, the thrust with one hand by the pommel, it's present in several treatises, both medieval and Renaissance treatises. So this is a weird technique which you can find easily in treatises. So I use plenty of techniques which you find in the treatises. It's important to study them or not. Now, this is a complex question to answer. In general, I would say yes, simply because you are practicing historical fencing, and to me it's critical to relate to the treatise to consider yourself an historical fencer. If you want to fight, and you want to fight in a good way, and you have a good teacher, and you don't want to dig into the treatise, you are not, let's say, it's not mandatory to study the techniques on the treaty if someone is doing it for you. Now, there is also another point to take in consideration. Now, other people which are practicing sword-related things like modern fencers or kenjutsu practitioners or kendo practitioners, every one of them know some techniques from the place, from the historical place, even if he doesn't know that he knows them. So that's because the human body moves only in some specific ways, a number of ways. And most of the techniques from different parts of the world and different parts of history are the same. And you sometimes end up doing a technique even if you don't know it. So this is a complex answer, I know, but this is, I said this to, I simply mean, it's important to study techniques, yes. You can learn a lot of things from studying techniques. It's mandatory to do it, no, not really. So you can try to, let's say, learn techniques from in other ways. As I said before, if you study another sword-related kind of martial arts or combat sport or whatever, you already know some techniques. You can also find a good instructor which study for you the place. It's important to know the techniques to fight. Well, generally speaking, yes. So you need to know how to move, how to properly interact with the opponent's sword and the opponent in general, and every single movement that you do in relation to your opponent is a technique. So it's important to know techniques? Yes. It's important it's possible to apply techniques in sparring and in tournaments and most probably in a fight? Yeah, it's quite, it's not easy at the beginning, but in the end, if you train enough, it's quite easy, let's say. So in general, you fight as you train, that's it. So next question. So this is not a question. Thank you very much. I like your video, enjoy your learning. Is from Siu Lun Ho. So thank you. What longsword would you personally recommend? Love the channel, Federico. So this one is from Tracy Jones. So thank you, Tracy. So which longsword I prefer? Speaking about every single kind of longsword in general, let's say I suppose that you are talking about training longsword. So if we are speaking about training longsword, now my favorite training tool right now is the Corona Feather. I have tested and used a huge number of feathers in the past. Now the Corona feather is probably my favorite one for a number of motivation. It's quite strong in the bind and in beatings, etc. So it's very good to control the opponent weapon. Even if you have a good control of the opponent weapon, is also kind of fast in your movement. I personally prefer the short feather, so it's 125 centimeters long, and this makes it even more fast in the movement. So you are really fast, you are strong in the bind, it's comfortable. Speaking about feathers, now the Featherschwert kind of sword is not my favorite one in terms of shape, the aesthetical aspect. The Corona feather otherwise is my favorite feather. So I consider it quite a cool tool to watch. So I like it, which is an important thing to me. So this is personally my favorite Featherschwert, and I would probably advise it to you. If you are speaking about actual swords types, I prefer the type 15A. So it's like the ideal at the end of the 14th century, first half of the 15th century sword. Is really narrow. It's a thrust-based kind of sword. Not every single time, but most of the time. This is my favorite shape. I like it. It's ideal for basically all the medieval kind of stuff, treatise stuff, Lichtenauer stuff, Fiore, etc., etc. So that one is my favorite blade shape, my favorite longsword shape. So let's go for another question. So the next question is from jump-dash/block. Lol, I like your name. Are there any specific techniques or game plans that you utilize specifically due to the context of longsword sparring as a sport rather than historical accuracy? If so, what are your opinions on sparring for sport versus historical authenticity? Now, in general, it's kind of hard to answer this question because, as I said before in answering another question, the way of training and fighting is similar for sport and duel. Now, when you are practicing for a sport, you can, let's say, go faster and care slightly lesser about the opponent's sword. But nevertheless, if you want to win in a clear way, in general, you have to care about the opponent's sword too. Maybe not every single time, because in sport you can waste your lives. You have many lives, you can waste your lives to study the opponent. This is the real difference. But when you want to score in a proper way, you have to care about the opponent, what he's doing. You have to parry the opponent's sword after you strike him, before striking him, etc. So you have to control the opponent's sword and the opponent if you want to win properly a sparring match or a tournament match. But as I said, you can waste your life more or less in a conscious way to study the opponent. Now, some people does it, some people don't. I don't really like to waste my life to study the opponent. It's not a good idea. Like, don't wasting your life to study the opponent, because you have a chance and you should use it if you want to win the tournament at any cost, because this is basically strategy. But I want to represent as much as I can, let's say, a real fight in every single bout of my tournaments and my sparring, so I don't waste lives to study the opponent. I tend to study the opponent too, because it's impossible to watch him and don't receive any kind of informations when you are fighting him for 1, 2, 3, 4 times. But nevertheless, I don't like to waste lives in that way, to study the opponent during a longer match or a longer sparring. This is the main difference. And this is the real tactical difference that makes the duel different from sparring and tournaments. And this is not true for every single person, as I said right now. In terms of tactics, in terms of techniques, let's say, basically, as I said before, every single technique is more or less historical. So the only thing is that how you apply them. If you apply them at the wrong time, it's historical too, because people made errors even in the past. So the error is historical, the timing error, the measure error, whatever. So it's not, precision is not equal to being historical. Precision is about your personal training, the personal training of every single fencer or martial artist, both in the past and now. As I said before, the only difference is about how much you can push yourself in certain situations. So because you have many life to waste, sometimes you say, okay, I can waste, I just try this really scary thrust without controlling the opponent's sword, and maybe everything will go in a good way or not. So it's kind of easier to take this kind of decision in a sparring match or in a tournament compared to a duel. Because if it goes something wrong in that scary situation, more scary than normal situation in a fight, you basically die or get maimed or whatever, so it's not a good idea. This is the only real difference that makes sparring and tournaments different from a real fight. So the last question of this video. Okay. What do you think about Kiai? So is yelling loudly in a match. Have you tried it in HEMA? Now, I personally like Kiai. I don't think that you have to yell in a loud way. So this is typical from Eastern martial arts culture, especially as far as I know, Japanese culture. It's a way to represent, let's say, the fighting spirit. So you do it, you yell in a strong way to represent your fighting spirit. It may be good from a psychological perspective for you and bad for your opponent to do it. I don't really try to yell in a strong way. I personally do very small, very strange sounds like huh when I am thrusting the opponent, because I exhale basically. So doing the kiai, a very small kiai, is a good way to exhale. And this is the main goal, in fact, for the kiai itself. Doing it very loud and very strong is more about psychology. So I don't use it in this way. To be honest, when I make my sound, my weird sound, when I am thrusting, when I am charging the opponent, let's say, it makes me a little bit more confident. So even in the psychological terms, it works for me. But it's not about, let's say, making the opponent feeling bad or scared about me. So I don't intend it in this way. It may be good for this if you try to do a very loud kiai. I don't know, I never tried it. I try to not take this kind of habit because in tournaments in general it is forbidden to do the kiai. So in general to yell or let's say do something loud. It's not permitted, so it's not a good idea to take this kind of habit because I have to fight in all these different environments and tournament is one of them. But in general it may be a good idea to try this for, let's say, for making your opponent in a stressful situation. So put him in a stressful situation and controlling him by a psychological perspective. So this may be a good idea. So generally speaking, I like the kiai. I think it's also great and cool to watch during katas, etc. I think that it finds its place in the fight in many ways. I also use a very small kiai to exhale and to, let's say, boost my psychology. So guys, this was the last question that I decided to answer in this video, which is kind of long right now. I will answer more of your questions in the future videos. So if you want to drop some more questions in the comment section of this video, just drop them. I will answer them in the next one. So that said, guys, thanks for watching. Remember, if you want to support me, you can check the Patreon page. I always put the link in the video description. So you will find in my Patreon page more contents, more videos, articles, etc., which are specific, which are exclusive for my patrons. So there is plenty of stuff already on my Patreon, like 100 videos and articles exclusive for my patrons. So if you want to drop a sub, if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, I will really appreciate it, and you will find a lot of interesting stuff for yourself. So that said, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and well, see you next time.